5 seconds to go. Start. We may note that the post-mortem report of the deceased shows that he had received one firearm injury in his head and the cause of his death was craniocerebral damage as a result of ante-mortem firearm injury, which was sufficient to cause death in ordinary course of nature. The post-mortem report of the deceased showed that he had sustained one firearm entry wound in the abdomen and one exit wound corresponding to each other, and the cause of his death was shock and hemorrhage as a result of ante-mortem firearm injury. The injury report of the injured nephew of the appellant complaint showed that he had sustained a lacerated wound on the skull and bruises and abrasion on other parts of his body. All the three respondents herein have been named in the FIR along with 5 other accused. The appellant complainant, being the informant, had reiterated the events narrated in the FIR in his statement recorded on 20th of May 2020 under section 161 CRPC. After the charge sheet was submitted in court on 23rd June 2020, cognizance of the offence was taken and the case was committed to the Sessions Court for trial. So far, deposition of 4 eyewitnesses have been recorded, PW 1, 2, 3 and 4, and all of them have attributed a role to the accused respondents. While considering as to whether bail ought to be granted in a matter involving a serious criminal offence, the court must consider relevant factors like the nature of the accusations made against the accused, the manner in which the crime is alleged to have been committed, the gravity of the offence, the role attributed to the accused, the criminal antecedents of the accused, the probability of tampering of the witnesses and repeating the offence if the accused are released on bail, the likelihood of the accused being unavailable in the event bail is granted, the possibility of obstructing the proceedings and evading the courts of justice, and the overall desirability of releasing the accused on bail. It is equally well settled that bail, once granted, ought not to be cancelled in a mechanical manner. However, an unreasoned or perverse order of bail is always open to interference by the superior court. If there are serious allegations against the accused, even if he has not misused the bail granted to him, such an order can be cancelled by the same court that has granted the bail. Bail can also be revoked by a superior court if it transpires that the courts below have ignored the relevant material available on record or not looked into the gravity of the offence or the impact on the society resulting in such an order. In PV State of Madhya Pradesh and another Supra, decided by a 3 judges bench of this court, authored by one of us, Hima Kohli judge, has spelt out the considerations that must weigh with the court for interfering in an order granting bail to an accused under section 439(1) of the CRPC in the following words: as can be discerned from the above decisions, for cancelling bail once granted, the court must consider whether any supervening circumstances have arisen or the conduct of the accused post grant of bail demonstrates that it is no longer conducive to a fair trial to permit him to retain his freedom by enjoying the concession of bail during trial. Daulat Ram vs. State of Haryana 1995 1 SCC 349. To put it differently, in ordinary circumstances, this court would be loath to interfere with an order passed by the court below granting bail, but if such an order is found to be illegal or perverse or premised on material that is irrelevant, then such an order is susceptible to scrutiny and interference by the appellate court. Stop.